Hello everybody, Necromancy for Kids here, back again with another episode of Hidden Attributes, where I highlight some monsters and different attributes that people might not know about, or that I think have interesting effects that maybe you could build around in a more casual deck, or that might possibly be playable in some competitive decks for certain builds. This time I'll be featuring wind monsters, which it was a lot more difficult to choose for than earth monsters because, to be honest, there aren't too many powerful wind monsters, and the only ones that there are most people know already. But I thought regardless I'd still do this, and maybe you guys will learn about some monsters that you've never heard about before. To start off the list, we have Spell Canceller, level 5 wind machine with 1800 attack and 1600 defense. So while maybe not the best stats for a level 5 monster, at the very least it can run over a lot of the 1600 and lower monsters that we do see play in GOAT format. As well, it can't be taken down by Tsukuyomi, so there's that. It has the effect of spell cards and their effects in the field cannot be activated, and negate all spell effects on the field. So it is basically like Jinzo, except for spell cards. Spell cards are some of the most powerful cards in GOAT format, so shutting them down can do a whole lot for you. The only downside is, of course, that it does it for both players, but there are definitely ways that you can build a deck specifically around this card. One such deck is the answer, and also in certain machine return decks, this can be really powerful because alongside Jinzo, it stops your opponent from being able to activate anything once they hit the field. Next up, we have Slate Warrior, level 4 Fiend Flip with 1900 attack, 400 defense. It has a flip effect of this card gains 500 attack and defense. So if your opponent ends up flipping this with a Book of Moon, you can end up flipping it back up the next turn if they can't get rid of it, and it actually ends up coming back stronger. It also has the effect, if this card is destroyed by a battle, the monster that destroyed it loses 500 attack and defense, which is not part of its flip effect, to keep in mind, so that effect will activate even if this wasn't flipped face up first. So it can, if something actually ends up being able to destroy it by battle, usually it's going to have high attack, and then it's going to more than likely be low enough for you to retaliate back unless it was BLS. And even if they do use Tsukuyomi or something on it and attack it with a different monster or Book of Moon and such, they end up losing attack points in the exchange. As well, because it's a flip effect with really high attack, if you or they use No Limit Crossout on it, banishes all 3 copies, and you can use Return from a different dimension or Dimension Fusion to bring back all 3. Have a bunch of attack points on the field. So despite seeming very lackluster, it actually has a few interesting applications. I think in a Fiend-based deck especially, this thing can really shine. Then next up we have Sasuke Samurai number 4, level 4 warrior, 1200. And if it battles a monster, toss a coin and call heads or tails before damage calculation. If you call it right, destroy the opponent's monster with this effect. This activates before the monster is flipped face up, so you can end up possibly negating flip effects, and also if you're attacking into an opponent's defense mode or even attack mode, Chaos Sorcerer or BLS, this could be good for potentially getting rid of them. Of course, being a flip effect, it's not going to be consistent, but it is still an interesting option to have in your repertoire nonetheless. Then we have Sasuke Samurai. It is a level 2 warrior with 500 attack, 800 defense. At the start of the damage step, if this card attacks face down defense position monster, destroy that face down monster. Basically like a Mystic Swordsman level 2. And with its effect, the difference between them being that Sasuke Samurai has 500 attack instead of 900 attack, so it loses out in that regard. Though it does at least have 800 defense for what that's worth. while Mystic Swordsman has 0 defense, although I don't think that's going to come up too often. But if you're using a deck that already uses Kaminari to special summon your wind monsters, this is an interesting choice to include in there. Or if you need to use a wind monster instead of an earth for another card I'll be talking about, that could also be a reason to choose this. Then there's also Sasuke Samurai number 2, which is kind of interesting. It's a level 1 warrior with 200 attack, 300 defense. And once per turn during your main phase, you can pay 800 life points. If you do, until the end phase, spell and trap cards cannot be activated. So it has the benefit of being a warrior level 1, so you can search it out with Rhoda and potentially use it for Metamorphosis plays. As well, if you are about to swing for game, you can use its effect to prevent the opponent from being able to respond to your BLS or Chaos Sorcerer, what have you, that you're going to summon and attack for game with. The downside to this effect is that the opponent can chain an effect to its activation if they need to, so it's really situational and understandable why most people don't use it. Then you have Sylphid, a level 4 fairy with 1700 attack and 700 defense. Can't be normal summoned or set, and can only be special summoned by removing play 1 wind monster in your graveyard. Once a card is destroyed, it's resolved to battle and sent to the graveyard. Your opponent discards 1 random card from their hand. I think this would be one reason to play a wind deck, because 1700 attack on a special summon monster isn't bad. As well, the fact that it can discard cards from your opponent's hand is potentially really good, although it can backfire against chaos decks and the like. But regardless, it's a really good aggressive monster, and one of the reasons why you might want to use something like Sasuke Samurai or these other wind monsters instead of the earth, dark, or light ones. Then next we have Harpy Lady 2, a level 4 winged beast with 1300 attack, 1400 defense. Its name is always treated as Harpy Lady, which is a rule, so you can only have 3 Harpy Lady quote-unquote monsters in your deck. And its effect is negate the effects of flip monsters this card destroys by battle. Because flip monsters are so prevalent in the format, I would say that you should definitely at least include one of these in any Harpy Lady or Winged Beast type deck in this format over the other ones, which might get more attack, but this can prevent your opponent from getting a lot of advantage. And it's very searchable, being that you can use Kaminari or next card, Birdface, which is a level 4 winged beast, 1600. And when this card is destroyed by a battle and sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Harpy Lady from your deck to your hand. Not only can you add Harpy Lady 2 or the OG Harpy Lady, but there's the other Harpy Ladies. One of the more notable ones is Harpy Lady, Cyber Harpy Lady, which is 1800 attack and 1300 defense. A searcher that can search out an 1800 attack monster. Pretty interesting, although usually if it was destroyed by battle, the opponent could destroy your Cyber Harpy Lady too. But regardless, I think with the versatility that this actually has between Harpy Lady 2 and Cyber Harpy and the other Harpies, it is potentially very powerful. Definitely not to top tier levels, but still good regardless. Then you have Twin-Headed Behemoth, which a lot of people probably know about because it's currently limited. It has the effect of during the end phase, this card is in the graveyard because it was destroyed on the field and sent there this turn. You get a special summon this card, but its attack defense become 1000. You can only use the effect of Twin-Headed Behemoth once per duel, although it actually didn't have that clause of once per duel in the original card text, which is the reason that it was actually limited, because there was a weird way that you could end up activating its effect multiple times if like it got banished and then returned or something like that. Its effect actually isn't that overpowered, but it's still, I think, pretty decent in that it's a 1500 body that you can get back as tribute fodder for later, and that's one of the reasons I decided to keep it on this list. Then you have Arsenal Summer, level 4 spellcaster flip, 1600. It has a flip effect, add 1 guardian card from your deck to your hand, except for some certain cards, but it does still let you search for things like Guardian Sphinx, as I've mentioned before in some of my other videos, and that was used to great effect by format Italia, which again I'll link in the description below. As well, it can also search out Guardian statue, and if for some reason you really wanted to, you could search out Gate Guardian. This didn't really become relevant until later formats, where you could use Gate Guardian for fusion summons of other monsters, but there's also the cards that it was originally supposed to grab, like Guardian Seal. I think Guardian Seal is pretty much one of the only usable Guardians, and even then, of course, it's not that great. You can only summon it when there's Shooting Starbow Seal, and you could send 1 equipped spell equipped to this card to the graveyard to destroy 1 monster your opponent controls. It has really good stats for a flip monster. It's again the same sort of thing as Slate Warrior, where if they knock it, you can actually get back some pretty decent power to the field when you return it later. And it can search out some pretty interesting monsters in Guardian Statue and Guardian Sphinx. Then next up, we have 4-starred Ladybug of Doom, a level 3 insect flip with 800 attack, 1200 defense. Destroy all level 4 monsters your opponent controls. So if your opponent is attacking into this with like Tsukiyomi or something for whatever reason, that's going to get destroyed. Unfortunately, it won't get to destroy a Blade Knight, which is pretty bad, but there's a lot of level 4 monsters that people are using in GOAT format, although unfortunately there are also a lot of lower level monsters, namely level 1s and level 6s and level 8s. So this isn't going to always get you value, but against certain decks, this can completely blow them out. Like against a Harpy deck, pretty much all of their cards are level 4 except for Harpy Lady Sisters. Of course, I wouldn't recommend using this in most decks, but in a more casual or fun deck, I think it could be very interesting. Then we have Armed Dragon level 5, level 5 Dragon with 2400, 1700, really decent defense on it to protect from Tsukiyomi and Book of Moon and such. And its effect is you can send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard, then target 1 monster your opponent controls with less attack. Then the discarded monster destroy that target, which means that you can discard Sinister Serpent to destroy GOAT tokens and things like that. And in the correct deck, or if you have copies of this in your hand and such, you can potentially destroy some pretty high attack monsters like Chaos Sorcerer. And also during the end phase, this card destroyed a monster by battle this turn, you can send it to the graveyard to special summon Armed Dragon level 7. Unfortunately, Armed Dragon level 7 has 2800 attack and has a Lightning Vortex effect for monsters with equal or less attack to the discarded. It has only 1000 defense for whatever reason, which means that you might not even necessarily want to play it because Tsukiyomi can destroy it, while Tsukiyomi can't destroy this. And of course, Book of Moon 2 and all that. And for that reason, whenever I do play an Armed Dragon deck, I only play 1 copy of Armed Dragon level 7, and I just max out on Armed Dragon level 5s, because you don't even really want to summon Armed Dragon level 7 a lot of times. Then next, we have Cast Rider Gustaph, level 4 Warrior, 1400 attack, 1500 defense. Decent defense on it. And once per turn, you can remove from play 2 spells from your graveyard. This card gains 200 attack for each card removed for the end phase of your opponent's turn, so it can get up to 2000 attack. This card is pretty interesting for banished decks to get rid of your spells in your grave and turn them into value for something like Grand Maju. or if you're running a Chaos Greed deck, which requires you to have no cards in your graveyard, it's also pretty good for that. I know that Team Brokire posted a deck like that I will put in the description for you guys to check out. Pretty fun and interesting, and if nothing else, it could potentially be a 2000 beater when you need it to be in a deck that runs Rhoda and such. Then we have Lady Ninja Yay, level 3 warrior with 1100 attack, 200 defense. By discarding one wind monster from your hand to the graveyard, return all spell and trap cards on your opponent's side of the field to the owner's hand. It could be really good to open up the game-ending move for you when you're using a wind deck, such as if you're about to revive a really big monster, which could even be the card that you discarded for its effect. As well, it could be really devastating in a deck that uses anti-spell fragrance. Your opponent has to set all of their spells before they can use them, and then you end up returning them to their hand and they have to waste a whole nother turn setting them to be able to activate them. As well, because it's a ninja, you can use it with ninjutsu art of transformation to potentially summon some bigger monsters, including next monster, which is Ultimate Insect level 5. Level 5 Insect, 2300 attack and 900 defense. Fortunately, some pretty pitiful stats there, but if this card was special summoned by the effect of Ultimate Insect level 3, while it remains in the field, all of your opponent's monsters lose 500 attack. So essentially, if you do special summon it off of that effect, it's technically going to have 2800 attack, so it can run over pretty much anything that isn't BLS, or at least crash with a Dark Magician of Chaos. It also has, during the standby phase, by sending this face-up card to the graveyard, special summon Ultimate Insect level 7 from your hand or deck. But you could use Ninjutsu Transformation, attributing either Lady Ninja Yay or another ninja on your opponent's end phase, and special summoning Ultimate Insect level 5, and then during your next standby phase, you end up special summoning level 7, which is level 7 Insect 2600, 1200. 1200 really helps in that regard. The downside of this card is, again, it's a vanilla unless it was special summoned by the Ultimate Insect, and its effect is your opponent's monsters lose 700 attack and defense, which ends up being 3,300 attack, technically, which means this could even potentially run over a BLS due to its effect. Then next up, we have Little Wingard, a level 4 warrior, 1400 attack, 1800 defense. Once per turn during your end phase, you can change the battle position of this card. It's a pretty generic effect, but I thought it was kind of interesting. You could use Rhoda or something to grab it, and then it could get an attack on a goat token or the like, and then go to defense mode, so that it ends up being 1800, and you won't lose any life points if your opponent ends up running into it. Also a Sangan target and a Kaminari target, so it has that advantage despite having some relatively lackluster stats. I don't think in most decks you'd want to run this, but I think it does have potential situations where it could be useful. Next up, we have Princess of Tsurugi, which is a warrior flip, level 3 with 900 attack, 700 defense. The full effect is inflict 500 damage to your opponent's life points for each spell and trap card on your opponent's side of the field. In a way, it's sort of like a Des Koala or a Just Desserts, although it only affects the opponent's spell and trap cards. You really only want to play this in a burn deck, although it might be interesting to play a warrior burn deck that uses this, such as if you're playing Madazad the Zapper for aggro burn. Although in most regards, you're usually going to want Des Koala more because it has better defense and your opponent will likely hold on to cards. And of course, there's Just Desserts, which is generally a better card because it can't be knocked. But regardless, if you're playing a special kind of burn deck, or if you're just really looking for slots and you're not sure what else to put in for a burn deck, this could be a useful pick. Then you have Troop Dragon, starting to get to the bottom of the barrel with this. It's a level 2 dragon with 700 attack, 800 defense. If this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, special summon one Troop Dragon from your deck. It's something you can summon off of Kaminari and the like, and it's a dragon for what that's worth, such as if you want to use Stamping Destruction. And it allows you to potentially get tribute fodder, although if they only end up decking into it once, and then you end up tributing it for a monster, you're going to end up with a dead Troop Dragon in your deck. And if you only use 2 Troop Dragons, they might end up getting no value whatsoever because your opponent just attacks into them twice. The upside to this, of course, is that unlike something like Giant Germ that requires it to be in attack mode, this can special summon in defense mode, and not face down defense mode like Nibble Mabanga, which means that they could just knock it. So it does have its own advantages, though I don't think most decks want to run this unless you just are playing a pure dragon deck just for fun. And here we have Luster Dragon, level 4 dragon, vanilla, 1900 attack, 1600 defense, just as a beat stick, and it is a decent filler card in a deck that's based all around dragon monsters, as well as in a vanilla based deck, because its stats are really decent for what they are. I wouldn't want to play this in 99% of decks, but if you're playing a pure dragon deck, again, like with Troop Dragon, and you want to use Stamping Destruction or Burst Breath, which will let you tribute a dragon to destroy all monsters with defense less than the attack of the tributed monster, there's not a lot of monsters other than the high-end chaos monsters that are going to survive this being tributed for that. And it puts a lot of pressure on the opponent. And the last thing I wanted to mention here is Sonic Duck, level 3 Winged Beast with 1700 attack, 700 defense, vanilla. I only want to bring this up because you could include it in something like a vanilla Harpies deck, because it's a Winged Beast, so it gets a boost from that, as well as a boost from the other, from the Harpy Lady that increases wind monsters' attack. And it is one of the stronger monsters that is searchable by Emissary of the Afterlife, which is a level 4 Fiend 1600, 600. And when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, not just destroyed by battle, each player adds one level 3 or lower normal monster from their deck to their hand. Most opponents aren't going to have something to search with this card, and you could search out a Sonic Duck, which, like where I was talking about with Birdface, having a searcher that can search for something that has decent attack points is pretty good, although relatively situational. With all of that said, I think I will conclude this for today. Hopefully you guys learned a couple of things and maybe got some ideas for fun decks to play. Let me know in the comments if there's an attribute you'd like me to talk about next. I did come up with some ideas for light and darks that people don't usually play, but I prefer to do water or fire next. And if you guys wanted, I could even go back and talk about earth or some other wind cards you like. Let me know too in the comments if you know of any wind monsters that I didn't mention here that are slept on and people don't really talk about but are potentially really good in GOAT format. Thank you very much and have a great night.